You ever notice this? Right when life finally opens a door for you, you freeze. You're staring at the opportunity you once prayed for, the promotion email, the message from someone you genuinely connect with, the business idea that's been whispering in the back of your mind for years. It's right there, within reach, waiting for you to step forward. And yet you pull back. You find a reason to wait. You convince yourself you're not ready. You distract yourself with tasks that don't matter. You watch the moment slip away like it belonged to someone braver. On the outside, it looks like hesitation. On the inside, it feels like a storm, a tight chest, a racing mind, a sudden urge to run from the very thing you want. People call it laziness, lack of discipline, self-inflicted failure. But you and I both know it's something else. Because if it were really about motivation, you wouldn't feel that knot in your stomach. And if it were really about willpower, you wouldn't lie awake at night wondering why you keep ruining the things you care about most. This moment, the moment you pull back right before everything changes, is not weakness. It's a reaction, a pattern, a protection mechanism, so old and so automatic that you barely notice it's happening. But today, you will. Because once you understand why you pull back, you'll finally understand how to move forward without fear dragging you back into the life you're trying to outgrow. What you've been calling laziness isn't a lack of discipline. It's a survival pattern, an old psychological reflex that once kept you safe, long before you even knew what success meant. And if you've ever wondered why you pull away from the very things you want most, it's because this pattern has been running your life on autopilot. But to break it, you first need to understand what built it. Let's begin. Before you can break the pattern of self-sabotage, you have to understand where it was born, because this behavior didn't come out of nowhere. It didn't suddenly appear when you became an adult, got a job, started dating, or began chasing bigger dreams. Every self-sabotaging impulse you feel today has a story, a beginning rooted far deeper than you think. It's not weakness. It's not a flaw in your personality. It's the echo of a much younger version of you, trying desperately to keep you safe. And that story begins with 4 core fears, the quiet, powerful forces that shape the way you respond to opportunity, pressure, intimacy, and change. Before we explore each one, here's the truth almost nobody tells you. Self-sabotage is not about avoiding success. It's about avoiding emotional danger. Your brain is not protecting your goals. It's protecting your identity, your belonging, and your sense of safety. To understand your sabotage patterns, you have to trace them back to the fears that created them. So let's begin. Most people think fear of failure is about disappointing others. It's not. It's about what failure means about you. Somewhere in childhood, you learned that mistakes weren't just moments, they were verdicts. Maybe you grew up with parents who corrected you sharply. Maybe teachers told you, you can do better every time you tried. Maybe you learned that love and approval came when you succeeded and went quiet when you didn't. So as an adult, failure doesn't feel like, I got it wrong. It feels like, I am wrong. That's why many people, maybe even you, fall into self-handicapping, the most subtle form of emotional self-protection. Instead of giving something your full effort, you hold back, you distract yourself. You wait until the last minute. You sleep too little. You accidentally make things harder. Because if you fail after trying your hardest, it might confirm your worst fear, you're not enough. But if you fail because you didn't try, your identity stays safe. It's twisted, it's tragic, and it makes perfect sense. Your younger self learned that your worth depended on your performance. Your adult self is still trying to protect that worth by avoiding anything that could threaten it. This one is harder for people to admit, but it's far more common than you think. Success isn't just achievement. Success is transformation. And transformation is terrifying. Why? Because success invites 3 new emotional risks. 1 being exposed, imposter syndrome. What if I'm not actually good enough? What if people realize I've been faking it? Success raises the stakes, and suddenly you feel like you're standing under a brighter spotlight. Every mistake becomes a potential unmasking. 2, being expected to maintain the standard. If you succeed once, people expect it again and again and again. Success stops being a victory and becomes a pressure chamber. 3, being disconnected from your tribe. This one cuts the deepest. Humans are wired for belonging. If your family, friends, or community bond over struggle, lack, or staying small, success makes you the different one. You risk becoming an outsider. So, your brain whispers, stay where you are, stay where you're accepted. You don't sabotage success because you fear winning. You sabotage success because you fear what winning will change. Some people don't sabotage because they're afraid of failure or success. They sabotage because they're afraid of unpredictability. If you grew up in a chaotic home, anger, inconsistency, silent treatments, sudden emotional storms, you learned one thing early: control equals safety. When you couldn't control your environment as a child, you learned to control your outcomes as an adult. And for many people, that control shows up in a heartbreaking way. If I'm going to get hurt, I'll make sure it happens on my terms. So you end relationships first. You pull away the moment someone gets close. You quit before anyone can criticize you. You ruin opportunities before someone can take them away. Not because you don't care, because you care so deeply that the idea of losing control terrifies you. This is trauma's echo, the nervous system still bracing for impact, even when no impact is coming. One of the most misunderstood forces behind self-sabotage is the brain's craving for familiarity. Your mind doesn't define safe as good. It defines safe as known. If you grew up around instability, your brain memorized instability as normal. If you grew up around emotional distance, your brain memorized distance as home. If you grew up around scarcity, your brain memorized struggle as your baseline. So when life finally gets better, when a relationship feels healthy, when money starts stabilizing, when your career begins rising, your internal emotional thermostat panics. This is too good, too unfamiliar, too different from what we know. And just like a thermostat pulling the temperature back down, your brain pulls your life back to its emotional baseline. Not because you're addicted to dysfunction, but because dysfunction feels familiar, and familiar feels safe. Every fear above failure, success, loss of control, unfamiliar joy sprouts from the soil of childhood. Maybe you had a parent who only praised achievement, a caregiver whose love felt conditional, a home where emotions were unpredictable, a family that shamed mistakes 10, a culture of comparison, but maybe taking a lack of emotional safety. You learn to shrink yourself to avoid criticism. You learn to dim yourself to avoid envy. You learn to manage yourself to avoid conflict. You learn to sabotage yourself to avoid pain. These weren't weaknesses. These were survival skills. And your brain, loyal, protective, terrified, has been repeating them ever since. Because understanding these roots doesn't just explain why you pull back. It reveals something far more important. You're not broken. You're patterned. And patterns can be rewritten. Now that you understand the fears underneath your self-sabotage, there's another layer you need to see how those fears actually show up in your everyday life. Because self-sabotage doesn't walk in saying, "Hey, I'm about to ruin your progress." It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's subtle, logical, polite, almost helpful looking. Self-sabotage doesn't feel like sabotage at first. It feels like a reasonable thought, a harmless choice, a moment of hesitation that seems justified, until you realize it's been steering your life for years. These are the 5 masks it wears. 1. Procrastination, avoidance, disguised as productivity. Most people think procrastination is about being lazy. In reality, it's about protecting yourself from being judged. You sit down to write an important email, and suddenly you need to clean your desk, answer every message, scroll TikTok, reorganize your entire Google Drive. You stay busy, you stay moving, but you avoid the one task that actually matters. Why? Because the meaningful task is the one that risks evaluation. If you never finish, nobody can criticize it. If you never start, nobody can reject you. Procrastination isn't a delay, it's a shield. And the moment you call it by its real name, the mask starts to crack. 2. Perfectionism. Fear wearing a fancy suit. Perfectionism looks admirable from the outside. High standards, strong work ethic, great attention to detail. But on the inside, it's terror. Perfectionism is the belief that if your work isn't flawless, you aren't acceptable. That any mistake will expose you. That your worth depends on your performance. So you tinker. You polish. You rewrite that email 15 times. You delay launching your website, business, art, or passion project because it's not quite ready. But the truth is, perfectionism isn't about quality. It's about safety. If it's never finished, it can never be judged. If it's never shared, it can never be rejected. Perfectionism is the most eloquent, socially praised form of self-sabotage and one of the most lethal. 3. The inner critic, the voice you didn't choose. If self-sabotage had a soundtrack, this would be it. You're not ready. Who do you think you are? You'll embarrass yourself. You're too late. You're too old. You're not talented enough. This voice shows up precisely when you're about to step forward. It sounds like you, but it isn't you. It's the collection of every harsh comment, every disappointed teacher, every critical parent, every impossible standard you absorbed growing up. You internalize those voices because you had to. Children don't question their caregivers, they adapt to them. And now, even as an adult, that voice speaks in a tone meant to keep you small, quiet, safe, and invisible. The inner critic isn't trying to ruin your life. It's trying to prevent emotional pain. It just doesn't realize you're no longer a child. 4. Upper limiting the fear of too much good. Some sabotage doesn't happen when things are going wrong. It happens when things are going too right. Your relationship is peaceful. Your job is finally stable. Your mental health is improving. Your finances are better than ever. And suddenly, you pick a fight. You overspend. You stop sleeping well. You overthink tiny, insignificant issues until they swallow your peace. Why? Because joy is unfamiliar. Because calm feels unsafe. Because your nervous system has been trained to expect chaos, and when it doesn't see chaos, it creates some. This isn't irrational. It's neurological. Your emotional baseline was set years ago, and anything above it triggers alarm bells, so you fix it by bringing yourself back down to the pain you know. Not because you want pain, but because your brain mistakes pain for home. 5. Indecision. The illusion of safety through overthinking. Indecision feels responsible, thoughtful, careful, but beneath the surface, it's avoidance. Choosing one path means eliminating others. Starting one project means risking failure. Saying yes to someone means risking heartbreak. Saying no means risking regret. So you stay in the space in between. You research endlessly. You analyze every angle. You collect information but never move. Indecision protects you from the discomfort of commitment, but steals your future in the process. The scariest part? Making no choice is a choice, and it's usually the one that keeps your life exactly the same. Here's something powerful most people never realize. Self-sabotage isn't random, it's predictable. It follows the same cycle, over and over. 1. A trigger appears. A chance, a risk, a change, an opportunity. 2. Anxiety rises. Your old fears wake up. Fear of failure, success, exposure, abandonment, or unfamiliar joy. 3. The sabotage action kicks in. Procrastination, perfectionism, overthinking, withdrawing, picking a fight, quitting early. 4. Temporary relief sets in. You feel calm again, safe again, back in control, back in the familiar. But then comes the guilt, the regret, the self-blame, and the moment the next opportunity appears, the loop begins again. Not because you're weak, not because you lack discipline, but because the loop is strong, and until you see the loop, you can't break it. Awareness is powerful, but awareness alone won't break a lifetime of patterned protection. To truly change how you respond to opportunity, pressure, closeness, and growth, you need a plan, one that speaks to both your mind and your nervous system. A plan that doesn't shame you, force you, or push you, but gently guides you into becoming someone who no longer pulls back when life opens a door. This is the 4-step process that begins that transformation. Step 1. Awareness, the sabotage log. You can't change what you can't see. And right now, your sabotage patterns move faster than your conscious mind. That's why the first step is simple. Watch yourself. For 7 days, keep a sabotage log. Every time you feel the urge to procrastinate, overthink, withdraw, avoid, or quit, write down. What triggered the feeling? What sabotage impulse showed up with them? Which mask it belonged to? Which fear was underneath rebellion? You're not judging, you're observing. Because the moment you see the pattern, you stop being the pattern. This step alone can change someone's life. Step 2. Cognitive reframing, arguing with the lie. Your inner critic is loud, confident, and deeply rehearsed. But even the most convincing voice loses power when you challenge it. When the voice says, "You're not ready," answer with, "That's a feeling, not a fact." When it says, "You'll fail," answer with, "Failure is data, not identity." When it says, "Who do you think you are?" When the day from the mind Christ, answer with, "I'm someone learning, someone trying, someone growing." This isn't toxic positivity. It's mental correction. You're not trying to silence the fear, you're trying to speak to it in a language your adult self understands. Because the inner critic is the voice of your past. The reframer is the voice of your future. Step 3. Redefine success and failure shift from outcome to identity. One of the biggest reasons people sabotage is because their goals are enormous, intimidating, and tied to their sense of worth. So you shrink the goal until it becomes too easy to fail. Not write a book, but write for 5 minutes. Not start a business, but send one outreach email. Not get in shape, but put on your shoes and walk outside. The goal isn't to succeed. The goal is to show up. And every time you show up, even for a tiny step, you teach your brain something crucial. This new territory is safe. Slowly, your emotional thermostat adjusts. Slowly, your identity shifts from someone who tries not to fail into someone who shows up no matter what. That shift is everything. Step 4. Radical self-compassion. reparenting the saboteur. This is the hardest step for high achievers, because many of them were raised on criticism, not compassion. But here is the truth. You will never shame yourself into becoming someone you can be proud of. Self-compassion is not indulgence. It is psychological oxygen, and the part of you that sabotages. That's not your enemy. It's the younger version of you, the one who learned that the world wasn't safe. Your job now is not to fight it. It's to lead it. When sabotage rises, say, "I know you're scared. I hear you. But I'm not that helpless kid anymore. I can handle this." That's reparenting. That's healing. And that's how you teach your nervous system that growth is no longer dangerous. These 4 steps don't erase fear. They teach you to move with fear without letting it pull you back into the life you've outgrown. So here's the truth, the most important truth in this entire journey. The gap between who you are and who you want to be was never about laziness, lack of discipline, or not wanting it enough. It was about misalignment. Old protective beliefs clashing against new dreams. Old fears colliding with new possibilities. Old wiring trying to keep you safe, even when safe was the very thing holding you back. You were never the problem. The pattern was. And now that you can finally see the pattern, its roots, its masks, its loop, you're no longer trapped inside it. You're standing outside it, observing it, choosing differently. That's the beginning of real change. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet kind that rewrites your future. One small, steady decision at a time. Growth won't always feel comfortable. Healing won't always feel brave. And stepping into a bigger life won't always feel natural. But discomfort is not danger. Fear is not a stop sign. And the part of you that pulls back is not trying to ruin you. It's trying to protect you with outdated instructions. Now it's your turn to lead. And if this video made something inside you, click if you felt seen, understood, or simply relieved to know you're not alone, then I would love for you to stay connected. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the deeper dives we're doing into patterns, healing, trauma, and self-growth. And before you go, tell me in the comments, which mask of sabotage did you recognize in yourself today? Procrastination? Perfectionism? The inner critic? Upper limiting? Indecision? Your story might be the one someone else needs to feel less alone. Welcome to your new starting line.